Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tina Tuiolimotu, and I'm the Training Educational Outreach Specialist for Exceptional Family Member Program, or EFMP. Thank you so much for joining me today on this Facebook Live. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and that is service animals. So whether you're here because you're thinking about bringing an animal into your home, or maybe you're just curious about what service animals are, you're at the right place. Let's dive right into it. We're going to be talking about some key topics today, one which includes the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. We're going to be talking about the differences between service animals and therapy animals. We're going to identify installation regulations, and then I'm also going to provide a couple of tips for PCSing with your animal, and then noting other things that you should remember when you're having a service animal or a therapy animal. So let's dive into it. First things first, we must understand the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This lays out the groundwork for the rights and regulations surrounding service animals. Specifically, Section 504 is the act that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities and programs or activities receiving federal funding or conducted by federal agencies. So in simpler terms, it ensures that people with disabilities are given reasonable accommodations. This is where service animals come to play. They are the accommodations that help people with disabilities go about their daily lives. This law is what gives service animals the right to accompany their owners to most public spaces and ensure that individuals with disabilities can fully participate in society. All right, let's break down the two types of animals we're here to talk about today. Let's start with service animals. A service animal is a dog or a miniature horse that has been trained to help with tasks directly related to an individual's disability. So for example, a service dog might assist someone who is blind by guiding them or alerting a person with epilepsy when they're about to have a seizure attack. The key here is training. These animals are trained to perform specific tasks that their owners cannot do for themselves due to their disability. All right, let's talk a little bit about the different types of service animals. Here are a couple that are out there. You have guide dogs, and their purpose is to assist people that are blind or having vision impairments by guiding them, making sure that they are going around objects, alerting when there's different elevation of change, for example, going up a stair or a curb, and they can also navigate them to safety. Then you have hearing dogs, and the purpose of a hearing dog is to assist those who are deaf or hard of hearing. They alert their handlers of important sounds, for example, a doorbell ring, alarms, telephone rings, or if someone is calling their name. Mobility assistance dogs are there to help individuals with physical disabilities or mobility impairments. They help by retrieving objects, opening or closing doors, pulling wheelchairs, or assisting with getting up from a seated position. Then you have seizure alert dogs, and they are there to alert their handlers before a seizure occurs. Sometimes they can alert them minutes or even hours in advance. Diabetic alert dogs can help detect changes in a person's blood sugar before it becomes too dangerous. Psychiatric dogs are those that can help individuals manage any psychiatric or emotional disabilities that they may have. They can interrupt harmful behaviors, provide deep pressure therapy, and help with anxiety or panic episodes. Autism support dogs are there to assist those with autism spectrum disorders. They provide social interaction, prevent wandering off, interrupting repetitive behaviors, or providing sensory support. And then there's allergy detection dogs that can detect when there's any type of allergens in the area. They can guide their person away from those allergen sources, or even retrieve safety foods or bring in emergency kits. So those are just a couple of examples of different types of service animals. On the other hand, we have therapy animals. These are typically animals that provide emotional support to individuals by just being there. Now, you might have heard of the term comfort animals or emotional support animals, And these are just a few other names for therapy animals. Unlike service animals, therapy animals aren't specifically trained to perform any types of tasks. They are simply there to offer comfort through their presence. So imagine a dog laying next to you after a rough day or offering unconditional love. That is the role of a therapy animal. Here on Camp Pendleton, we do have installation regulations. So here they do recognize service animals as policy applies. However, comfort animals do not warrant the same treatment as service animals. So for example, if you need to go to the commissary, you're able to bring your service animal, not a therapy animal. That is why it's important to know the difference. If you would like to learn more, we do have a Marine Corps order, the MCO 1700.39. You can find more information there. All right, so let's say you have a service animal and you're wondering how that can impact where you live. That brings us to installation regulations, which are important, especially if you are military personnel. Every installation will have their own regulations, but generally speaking, service animals are allowed as long as they're well behaved. However, certain breeds are banned from certain installations because of safety concerns. So that can include pit bulls, Rottweilers, or wolf hybrids. But don't worry, if you have a service animal that might be one of these breeds that are typically banned, you can request a waiver through your installation's commanding officer. It's always a good idea to check your installation's guidelines and follow them carefully to avoid any issues down the line. Now let's talk about one of the trickiest parts, PCSing with your service animals. Moving from one place to another can be stressful, but having your service animal by your side doesn't have to make it worse. Traveling by air, your service animal can accompany you in the cabin, and most airlines have policies in place for service animals. But there is a pro tip. Always check the airline's specific rules before you book a flight. And if you're staying in hotels, no extra cleaning fees should apply if you have a service animal. However, if your pet causes any damage, the hotel may charge fees just like they would with any other guests. Lastly, if you're heading overseas, check the quarantine requirements ahead of time. Some countries require a quarantine period for animals, but service animals may qualify for exemption. And before we wrap up, here are a few important things to remember. Service animals must be harnessed, leashed, or tethered unless it interferes with their work or an individual's disability. If someone asks you about a service animal, they can only ask two questions. Is the animal required because of your disability? What work or tasks has this animal been trained to perform? And please remember that service animals are working. They are not to be petted or distracted. Give them the space they need to do their job. Thank you guys for joining me today on this Facebook Live. If you have any questions or concerns, please utilize the comment box or send me a message. We also have our list of different offices here if you want to reach out to one of our offices. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.